Hello, everyone. This is Kripa Anand, and welcome to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. Today, we break down embedded distribution networks, consumer risk education system, and the affinity partnership parameters required to simplify complex structural protection models. In 2026, protecting an expanding real estate footprint, commercial operation, or family home from climbing asset reconstruction costs, severe weather liabilities, and hidden transaction expenses requires moving past late stage closing bundles to deploy early property education, native digital listing platforms, and proactive planning tools. Joining us today is Steve Laurin, Vice President of the Affinity Market Group at TD Insurance. Steve is an elite financial services strategist and corporate business development leader who commands one of Canada's largest affinity insurance portfolios, encompassing a network of more than 700 partnerships nationwide. With nearly 25 years of deep industry mastery spanning digital transformation, distribution engineering, and partner relations, he stands as a defensive authority on creating customer focused channels that demystify protection for millions of Canadians out there. So, before further ado, let's welcome this very special guest. Steve, welcome to the podcast. Such a pleasure to have you with us.
Thanks so much, Kripa, for having me. Really appreciate it.
Now, Steve, a highly stressful and recurring financial trap for home buyers and asset selectors is treating property insurance as a simple late stage checkbox to just rush through right before closing. Um, and it kind of leaves them completely blind to the true asset maintenance costs until it's too late. So let's start the conversation by understanding from your perspective, why should buyers integrate property insurance early instead of treating it as an afterthought? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's great. I think it's really important for Canadians to think about insurance early. So you can take the time, really understand what insurance needs you have, so you can really feel confident that you have the right coverage.
Hmm.
Buying a home, whether it's your first one or, second or third, it's still really exciting and it's a big purchase in your life, right?
Yeah.
So you find that, if you take an example, someone's new, you find a home, you're really excited, you go through, you're approved, you have your mortgage, everything is good, you're sitting with your lawyer, kind of walking through a checklist. And they're like, and remember, like you need insurance before, they'll release the mortgage and send the funds over to purchase the home. But you might have 24, 48 hours to make that decision. And it's not
Hmm.
that you can't get it done, because you absolutely can. When we think about
Right.
it, it's a pretty big decision to make in such a short period of time. So doing that earlier on, if you're searching for that home and you're looking for it, take the time, understand the needs. Like, what am I looking for? What is specific about this house, the region that I'm purchasing the house? There can be a big variance between the home you have and the home you're buying. So doing that early, spending the time and educating yourself so you feel comfortable that this asset that you're buying is well protected and you have the right coverage is just really important. So we really just need to move that forward and start it kind of when you're really searching for that home as opposed to waiting to the last minute.
Hmm. Very well articulated. I think this perspective completely alters the timeline for smart property investment, right? Bringing your insurance reviews forward right alongside early budgeting, it ensures that you avoid unexpected cost surprises right at possession day. Now, Steve, let's look closely at standard consumer compliance metrics and analyze why the vast majority of policyholders fail to monitor their coverage. From your extensive experience, what misconceptions make Canadians neglect annual policy reviews? And what do you suggest? How can owners stay prepared for it?
Yeah. So maybe I'll just touch on a couple of misconceptions that are out there. So first off, home insurance coverage, for your home isn't a one size fits all.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think, well, I have a home and I have this coverage and I'm moving. If you're going somewhere else, or I have tenant insurance today, I'm going to a home. Understanding the protection that you have is really important, and the needs that you have. And just because someone else has certain coverage that fits their needs, it absolutely
Right.
doesn't mean that that might cover yours. Content insurance, different pieces of where your home is could just require different coverages. So I think that's really important to know. A lot of times people depend on peer groups and stuff like, they said this was fine. Really do the work and understand, do I have the right coverage that I need for my home, right? And in your coverages.
Mhm.
Another big misconception is the fact that actually home insurance is mandatory in Canada. It's not. There's not a law that makes it mandatory to have.
Oh.
That being said, if you have a mortgage or you're a builder, there's certain aspects to get the funding to take the loan. at that point in time, they'll require you to have a mortgage, but you don't need to have one. Now, I wouldn't recommend, if you have a home and such a large asset, not to have the appropriate coverage on that. But at the end of the day, it is a bit of a misconception that is out there. And, I'll just think about right now in the coverage that you have. There's this kind of a base coverage that you can have. But why we're really talking and getting people to educate themselves is to think about, like, what are your specific needs? Recently, just think of right now how timely it is. There's been a lot of rain, some flooding that's been happening in different parts of the country that is out there. And you may or may not have the coverage that covers you for that specific risk. So understanding that and making sure that with the home that you're buying, where you're living, if you have the appropriate coverage based on what is happening is really important. So just don't assume, really dig in and understand kind of the needs that you have specifically to your home so that you've got the right coverage.
Wow, I think that data reveals an urgent need for simpler structural awareness, because I think a lot of people don't know about these basic things that they should be knowing, right? So thank you so much for shedding light on some of that, Steve. Let's look closely at your latest massive distribution update and break down the mechanics of your new digital real estate platform partnership. So please go ahead and tell us, how does the realtor.ca digital tool close gaps and connect buyers with insurance planning? Go ahead.
Yeah, so very excited, obviously, with the realtor.ca. When you look at it, when Canadians are searching for their properties, a lot of them are leveraging realtor.ca. So it's a great opportunity while you're doing that. And we really saw an opportunity, back to what I was saying earlier, about just finding a way to bring that up earlier and have that as part of the overall buying, so you understand kind of full budgeting, as you mentioned, like how do you equate for all of your expenses. And it's a really great opportunity as you're searching for those houses. You find 2 or 3 that you really like. We really make it easy. We're right there. You can click a button, come on over to online site, share a bunch of information that's there. You can ask some questions in that space. If you have more, we can connect you with a licensed advisor. So that really kind of achieving what we wanted about bringing that education and awareness earlier on. And the platform and that ability and that reach through realtor.ca is really going to help us do that and help Canadians get more informed on their needs for insurance.
Wow, I think that's amazing. Building on what you've said, I'd now like to give a special message to all of our listeners as well, specifically to all the expanding business owners, corporate managers out there, and independent property investors who are listening and watching. Allowing late stage logistics delays or unmapped property risks to stall your transaction closing, it's a major liability, specifically in 2026. Directed by Affinity partnership expert Steve Laurin, TD Insurance delivers accessible educational resources, risk prevention advice, and direct connections to licensed advisors to help you navigate your property goals with absolute confidence. Secure your asset protection early and explore their integrated tools by visiting the advice spaces on realtor.ca or connecting with a specialist via tdinsurance.com today. Now, coming back to you, Steve, let's transition the conversation into institutional partnership frameworks and look at how major brands can simplify complex corporate language. So, what do you suggest? How can large organizations simplify complex property coverage concepts for everyday consumers? Because as a layman, it's pretty difficult to, usually understand what, a subject entails. So, what's your statement on that?
Yeah, I'll start with maybe confirming that some people, when it's really complex, how comfortable consumers are with certain things. We did a survey at TD Insurance, and what we found out was, on a yearly basis, when people get their renewal, only 1 in 4 actually review the contents of that. There's a few reasons. It's a pretty large document. They might want to get into it, but we also know that people just feel it's complicated. There's a lot of information there, what to do, what to look at. So from that perspective, we know that there's a need to make this a lot easier for consumers. So what we really want to do, what I think, what TD is doing, TD Insurance, as well as large organizations, it's finding ways to raise awareness, right? Bring it to the forefront. When are they making decisions? Give them the access so they can learn and go to websites and do the research. And that's back to that partnership of what we've done. We bring it so far forward. So then at that point in time, then they can come over, go on online banking. There's a ton, or online site. There's a ton of information that's there that they can do research. We even support that with a chatbot as well if you have some questions. And then if you need even more information, then you can go through to one of our licensed advisors. So from our perspective, that's what I think people can do. We know there's some complicated pieces that are out there. Make the information accessible, easy, and then also in the language that is used, just make it easier. You don't need legalese all the time. Just give straight information and share that with individuals so they can make informed decisions and the opportunity to ask questions if they're still uncertain about it.
Definitely. I think, as you mentioned, breaking down the technical legalese into transparent conversational guidance, it builds that immense trust across your entire partner network as well. So that's amazing. Now, Steve, very quickly, let's pull your entire history in financial services and property planning together into an immediate practical tip for our audience. So
Sure.
go ahead. What is the most practical tip for small business owners to protect their commercial property this week?
So this week, and it'll sound very similar, but take a fresh look at your insurance coverage.
Mhm.
And even more so on the small business side, there's fluctuations in your business,
Yeah.
right? You can grow, the products you're offering, what you're selling, your revenue can be, drastically higher, even like month over month, year over year, the amount of revenue, the amount of clients that you have, traffic through your doors, whatever that might be, could look very different. And the coverage that you had a year ago, which was sufficient, might not be that anymore.
Mhm.
From a practical term, having, understanding that risk, do you have the coverage? And the reverse is true. You could be making some small changes, right? You've left a certain part of the business, your business is a little bit smaller. Maybe you're overinsured and you can save some money on that. Making sure that you're hitting budgets and managing expenses is critical for small businesses. So
Mhm.
it's not about just having all the coverage, it's about having the right coverage and managing your expenses that way. So I would say most practical thing, make sure that, we run into a lot of small business owners. They're really unsure. Like we talk to them and they're not sure when their policy's up or if they're covered for certain things. So take
Yeah.
the time, make sure it aligns to what your business is actually doing today and you've got the right coverage. Because if it's your business, it's critical for it to be successful and you want to make sure that it's protected.
That's amazing. That's $1 million advice right there, Steve. I'm loving this conversation, and definitely we'd love for you to be back, hopefully, for an in person episode that we do the next with you. But for now, Steve, before we let you go, if there's, you know, one advice that you have for everyone in the digital space. So, how can digital platforms foster consumer confidence and transparency, specifically in this property insurance area? What are your views on that?
So digital communication it's growing. We know everyone uses it today and it's really important, right? So I think digital platforms play a real key role in making insurance information a lot easier for consumers. So we touched on a little bit around, not legalese. It's not about legal jargon. Just explain things in a very simple way. Lay your websites out, give that information, let people do the research ahead of time and know what they're looking for. So it's really critical. It's information that we'll share and we
Right.
should be sharing to consumers. People need to know what they're purchasing and to make sure they're confident in their coverages. So for us, it's really about making insurance simpler, just make it easier to understand. So it's really important for us to do that. And there's a couple of pieces I'd say, like there's moments that matter as well, like especially if you do need to use your insurance and making that really easy. We kind of didn't touch on that today, but it's about acquiring the right insurance. But if you need to use it, also making sure through our digital platforms we make that easy. People understand what that looks like. So it's just really about the type of information that's available, the language that we make it available for people, and letting people know where to find it. It's kind of easy, you can just go to our website and get there. But this is why we're now doing efforts the way we're doing different distribution opportunities of really getting out to the marketplace, bringing the information that we have into the market where our customers are, so that they can get that information really easily from that perspective. And then I had mentioned it a little bit earlier. We've even done things where we've got a chatbot that can help. So if you're online and you're doing that research and you have a few questions, go ahead, use that and get that information there. And if you still have questions, I always recommend, if you're unsure, there's licensed advisors that can really help you out, answer all your questions. They might even bring up some stuff that you hadn't thought of. So it's that combination, leverage digital, make it, faster, simpler for everybody. But we
Yeah.
love adding in that human touch where if you want to speak to someone, you can always pick up the phone and give us a call and we'll be there for you to answer questions.
That's amazing. I'm sure there was a pretty reassuring episode for all the small business owners out there. Steve, it's a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for being here and doing this with us.
Really appreciate it, Kripa. Thank you so much.
All right, that was Steve Laurin from TD Insurance, showing us how to collapse the expensive errors of last minute property protection, leverage embedded digital ecosystems to reach consumer markets early, and deploy strategic affinity partnerships to secure small business portfolios in 2026. To all the listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and visit CanadianSME.ca for more such resources. To learn more about how we are supporting the ecosystem beyond the platform, please visit the Canadian SME Small Business Foundation at smbfoundation.ca. And lastly, a very special thank you to our partners, UPS, our shipping partner, and ADP, our HR partner, for their ongoing commitment to empowering SMBs across Canada. I'll see you all in the next episode. Kripa Anand signing off.